Welcome to VolleyTalk. Alongside Amir Snosson, I'm Elliot Scully. Join us today, the head coach of the Brecksville Broadview Heights Bees, Phil Margevicius. Coach, how you
That's
doing?
perfect. Good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Hey, so you've had a great volleyball background. You're definitely one of the coaches that could get on the court and do some damage. You earned All-State, first team All-State twice playing at St. Ed's. You played collegiately at St. Francis. Talk to me about how you got into coaching and ended up taking the job at Brecksville.
Yeah. So my journey with coaching began initially on the girls' side. I got involved with ABC, which is a girls' club out of Cleveland. Um, and then I met the head coach of Gilmore Academy, which is a local high school on the east side of Cleveland. And I began coaching girls' high school there. So I just finished up. I coach girls as well. So I finished my fourth season with Gilmore this past year. And that kind of got my feet wet to coaching and just fell in love with it. And then about 2 years ago, the job opened up at Brecksville, and I knew about seven of the boys. Um, Almost every single one of my starters has played beach volleyball, and so I'd run into them at Sandbox Volleyball Club. Um, and so the opportunity became available to coach them, and I just jumped at it.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about coaching at Gilmore as an assistant, and you helped them get back-to-back state championships. What have you learned working on the girls' side and being part of a winning program that you're trying to emulate at Brecksville?
Yeah, that's been a huge part. The head coach there, Danny Coughlin, I've learned so much from him. He's been a great mentor and friend to me. But just building a culture that demands excellence, right? Of everything that we do from first match all the way to playoffs is about building excellence and planning for the future. And what team are we going to be when playoffs start? Regular season is just preparation for the postseason. Um, Building a demanding schedule, really challenging those players, making sure that they're battle tested, but making sure that they're ready to go once playoffs start. So he's been a huge part in helping prepare me for Brecksville, and really helping these boys prepare for playoffs.
Yeah, always awesome to have a great mentor like that. So you look at your playoff run last year, ended in a tight loss to St. Ignatius, but you did get a pretty dramatic win over Stowe Monroe Falls, a reverse sweep. Can you talk about how much it meant to have your first meaningful playoff victory come in such a dramatic fashion?
Yeah, I couldn't have been more proud of the boys. Their ability. I mean, last year was we had a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of that happened in our practice gym. But um, with it being my first year there and being introduced to a lot of new systems, um, they did an awesome job with handling it. And that Stowe match was kind of a everything kind of came to fruition in a lot of ways where they started to see that just trusting in each other and playing hard makes a difference. I think at the end they got pushed. They got pushed really hard in the first two sets of that match. We got very uncomfortable. They started to argue, started to break down, and then they just dug deep, um, gritted their teeth, and just started being great teammates. And that's really the momentum that changed. So that was like a great. I think they saw it too. Great proof of concept in a lot of ways. Where in our first season we had a huge win, backs against the wall in a playoff match against a fantastic team. Um, and they stepped up to the plate and battled hard. And it was really difficult, but they did an awesome job with that.
For sure. Now, your first year as head coach, the Bees moved up to Division 1, and we've kind of seen you guys in Berlin seem to be the two only schools so far that have had a lot of success with that transition from D2 to D1. Did you feel any impact from that change when you took over the program?
Um, Personally, I did not. I think the North region in general, even when I was playing in high school, divisions weren't a huge factor, because the North region is generally a smaller region. Everyone would tend to play each other. And so, last year I tried to make our schedule as strong as possible with the opportunities I was given. And this year was the same way. It's just how can we make our schedule as challenging as possible? How can we prepare ourselves regardless of division? Because there's tons of great teams. Last year, St. V was an excellent team in Division 2. Um, that we were lucky to play twice, right? And that they helped prepare us for that playoff run, and hopefully they could say the same about us. But I think just trying to play the best competition, in the area, regardless of division. Especially, I mean, it's definitely more prevalent in the North, but it hasn't. I don't think it's been too huge of an adjustment for the boys either.
Well, speaking of competition, you got the chance to go down to Liberty to play in a quad with St. X Liberty, and you ended up getting a win over Berlin. What were your takeaways from that day?
That was an awesome opportunity for us. A big reason that I was so lucky to or grateful for that opportunity was for them to be able to go against some of the best teams in the state. So that, again, if we see them again in May, they're not the boogeyman. They're not scary. They are human in a lot of ways, and that's not taking away from anything that they've done or anything that they've accomplished. But we competed with every single one of those teams to some degree. Liberty definitely took control of that match, but there were definitely stretches in there where, I think we can compete. And same thing with X. We lost to X in 3-2. We cleaned up a few errors on our side, and then Berlin, we ended. They put it all together and executed really, really well against a very, very good team, very scrappy team. And so just very, very grateful for that opportunity to go and have them be battle tested. It was great to see that beginning of the season. I think being in the North too, we have limited opportunities to go see some of those really, really strong teams from Columbus and Cincinnati. So that was just really, really proud of how the boys performed, and they did an excellent job with responding. Again, I'm not viewing that wins or losses. It's more so, how does that, that's just another step in our journey, right? And preparing to be battle tested for May and be preparing to compete when it matters in May.
Yeah, and you'll get a chance for revenge against X and Liberty at this year's Centerville Elite Eight tournament. You talk about opportunities. How much does it mean to get this invite to such a prestigious part of Ohio volleyball?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Again, just very, very grateful for the opportunity, especially for our boys. I was lucky enough to play in it. I believe it's all 4 years of my high school career at St. Ed's. But it's such an awesome experience for them. I still remember competing in that tournament. It's the best tournament in the state by far. So it's a great opportunity for us to go and be challenged. Again, out of region competition is so huge. And preparing them and seeing really, really good competition that's going to be, I'm really, really looking forward to that tournament. It's going to be great. Again, regardless of wins or loss, it's just going to be an awesome experience for our guys to go and see top competition.
So you talk about, the competition in the North. Our conversations in Division I level have mainly focused around you and St. Ignatius. And I have to notice they're not on your schedule. Is there any reason for that?
Beginning of last year, I wanted to get them on our schedule. Same thing with Stowe, but it just didn't work out. And unfortunately, it wasn't able to happen. But I tried to do everything in my power to make those matches happen. But they just didn't, unfortunately.
Well, looking ahead, you've got a busy week with Hudson, Nordonia, and Firestone, 3 matches in a row. And then obviously you've got the Elite Eight coming up. What results are you looking for from your team these next couple weeks?
I think it's just about building momentum. So last week was our spring break. Definitely a lighter practice schedule for them. So I'm very, very excited to get back in the gym and just start building momentum. We're in a nice stretch here where we have 2 weeks to prepare for the Elite Eight, and that's kind of how I'm viewing these next 2 weeks. Is everything that we do in our practice gym, how we execute during our matches is going to be preparing towards that Elite. How can we build momentum? How can we build some consistency? How can we stay at a high level, regardless of who our opponent is? Just playing Brecksville volleyball and getting the boys in that mindset of, as soon as we step on the court, we're playing Brecksville volleyball, regardless of who it is.
Well, hey, Coach, we appreciate you coming on. Pretty sweet seeing the journey of Brecksville volleyball up to this point. So thanks again.
Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, that was Phil Margevicius. Thanks again to him for coming on. So hey, we had a pretty dang busy week. Hilliard Derby's off to a heck of a start for their season. They swept Beaver Creek, Jerome, and they beat Berlin and 4 to remain undefeated in the OCC Cardinal. That 4-set was 25-13. They're still without their main outside hitter, Chris Jones. Now Berlin was missing their main outside, who's Mitch Moore. So again, it's kind of tough to tell. It's unfortunate that those top OCC Cardinal matchups have turned out that way. But I mean, their only losses so far to number 1 St. X and number 2 Liberty. A pretty great season so far for them.
Yeah, and again, we talked about a little bit of concern early on with Darby with how is it going to fare out with Aiden Cole moving from libero to outside, but it seems like it's going well in terms of the offense and all the players that have stepped up. And that's now another big step for Derby going on the road and beating Berlin. And the Bears have struggled at home this year. Again, did not pick up any wins in the quad. They hosted, lost to Liberty, St. X, and
Liberty
Brecksville.
hosted that.
What?
Liberty hosted that this year.
Oh, sorry. But still,
Yeah.
they're struggling a little bit during in top 10 competition. This is now another loss for them, and now it happens on home ground again for the second consecutive year, I think.
Tough for them so far. They will get another crack at Derby later on in the season, so they are hoping right now that either Derby takes a loss or that they can secure a share of the conference title. We had Lakota East play Moeller, did take a set from them. I thought it was pretty competitive. Aside from that set one, it was kind of a blowout in favor of Moeller. I see Lakota East kind of taking the role that Sycamore or Walnut Hills had last year, where they're giving the GCL team some trouble in the regular season, but come playoff time, it's probably not going to be anyone but St. X, Moeller, or Elder coming into the region.
Yeah, I kind of sort of agree with that. I just think that Sycamore had a little bit more power in their favor, right? They were kind of a team that we didn't expect to put them in their top 10, and we didn't have them in our top 10. And then all of a sudden they get some big wins against Elder. They take Moeller to the brink, even though they don't win at Brisbane Family Center. That's a pretty good road result for them. And all of a sudden they're a top 5, top 6 team. I don't see East going that far, just because I think the fact that there hasn't been too many upsets this year, just not too many swaps compared to what we've expected. But nonetheless, I like what I saw from the Thunderhawks, and getting a set off Moeller, pretty good.
Yeah. We've talked about Pick North a little bit. They're still undefeated, no sets dropped. This was something I was really interested to see. New Albany, while not like a top 10 team, if we went to 20, they're probably top 20. They're decent competition. And I was about what I expected. Pick North did sweep them. Scores were 17, 17, and 19. So I think, dealing with middle road competition, they did what I expected them to do. Obviously, they've got that quad coming up, Beaver Creek, Mount Vernon, Berlin. That's their big test. Until then, I think we've got them in about the right spot.
I think so too. And I think the bigger thing with Pick North is this is the first time, at least for me, that I was able to see them play. And again, I was really impressed by their middles today. Kyle Buckwalter, Torrent Terry, and even Jackson Van Warmer. They just played out, and I think they just have great cohesion at the net. I saw a few double blocks today that I was like, this is probably the most clean I've seen in terms of teams outside of, say, maybe the GCL or the top 5 teams in general. I was really impressed with their play today.
So then looking ahead to next week, we've got another GCL Friday coming up. We got St. X versus Elder and Muller versus LaSalle. Big implications. I would not expect Elder to get the win over X, but again, you never know on the GCL night, anything can happen. If X gets through Elder, then they've been through the rotation once and they're in great position to win the league. Obviously, Muller expect to get the win over LaSalle, but LaSalle's only losses so far this year have been in the GCL, so they're having a great season in their own right.
And again, it feels like, and we've seen it at times with St. X and Muller, right? The Crusaders go to LaSalle in 2022. They get the win, but in 5. Last year, we see an unbeaten St. X team go to Elder. They lose that game in 5. So this is an interesting weekend for both St. X and Muller because historically, at times, this has been a trap game for both of them.
Yeah, and then we've got Mount Vernon also that Friday night gets another crack at St. Charles. We talked about St. Charles really blowing them out kind of in that last set and really propelled them into the number 1 in Division 2 for our rankings. And then right after that, they've turned around. They've got a tri match with St. X and St. Ignatius. Obviously, St. X number 1 in the state, undefeated 8-0 right now. Ignatius still has not dropped a set. They're 10-0, and I would say against better competition than say a Pick North. Still though, this is the big test for Ignatius. If they're going to do something, they at least need to be competitive with X today. If it's a sweep, I don't know. It's tough for me to see Ignatius doing anything this year. If it's a 4-set or a 5-set loss or even a win, that's huge.
I kind of agree with you on that. I think because Brecksville Broadview was able to get a set off of St. X earlier this year in the quad, I think the biggest thing for me is when we have these two matchups where you have one team from a region who's probably going to win it and another team from a region that's probably going to win it, where essentially you have the leaders at this point. It's kind of like a little bit of a battle of attrition. I kind of am reminded what we saw last year at Berlin where these two played off and St. X won that game relatively handily. And I think that kind of set the tone for how one, Ignatius was not going to be the Ignatius they were last year, and two, how St. X was just going to dominate until they lost to Moeller in the regional final, and then lost to Elder in the regular season. So I think it's more of a sense of Yes, I want to see Ignatius do well, but it's almost like this is a regional battle. This could be a semifinal down the way, right? It was Region 2 against Region 4 in last year's state semifinals. As it is right now, we could see it again. I think the other thing with this too is I want to see how Mount Vernon does, right? They started off the year against Moeller and against New Albany and St. Ed's in the quad, and now you've got St. X and Ignatius, and it feels like, in my opinion, this is a team that's still in the top 10. They're still doing well, but they haven't been as flashy as they've been in years past. If you can get a set, like if you can even get a win against one of those guys, I think there's a lot more conversation around the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that Mount Vernon team. Parker Gant tore his labrum and had surgery, so now he's setting for him. A couple years ago, I mean, people were having conversations with me about will he be Player of the Year in 2 years in the state. So like to lose him on the outside was really tough for them. I think they're still adjusting positionally, still keeping it competitive. Obviously, they always have one of the most competitive schedules in the state. And even though it's tough to see them coming out of a region with Liberty, they're going to be one of the top teams. They may be playing Liberty in a regional final, so it's not like they're a free win at this try. Definitely a team X and Ignatius are going to have to watch out for. St. Charles, after playing Mount Vernon that Friday, will have also a quick turnaround for a huge matchup at the Division II level. Number one, St. Charles right now playing number two, Archbishop McNicholas. Hudson will be there as well. I mean, just huge implications because we've speculated that St. Charles is better, but McNick and St. Charles have not really played each other, and there's nothing definitive to say that St. Charles deserves the one spot. So huge weekend for them.
And I think another thing is this is one of those matchups where we're starting to see a try that's kind of established in that area and trying to see who's better. I think we saw the same with DeSales last year against some teams as well. So this is going to be another interesting test for St. Charles, right? And we saw what happened with DeSales. They were able to get the victories they got that weekend, and they were able to move forward. They were able to win state, and this is another test for St. Charles. I think the pressure's on them right now.
Yeah, I believe it was Fenwick and St. Vincent St. Mary that the Andy Phelps talked to us about that. That was kind of the big week when we were like, all right, hey, we can do this. Like these are the best teams we're probably going to see. Also that Saturday, really busy Saturday in the state. We've got the East West Invitational, Kilbourne, Thomas, Upper Arlington going and playing Beaver Creek, Centerville, and Fairmont. Pretty cool event. I imagine it'll be something that'll continue for a while just because of how that region is set up with the geography. It makes sense. We talked to Carol Bicycle a little bit about that. Pretty cool event. And then again with the OCC Cardinal, we've got Darby and Thomas playing. Thomas has one loss to Berlin. Thomas win here would probably, I think, set up a three-way tie because I see a full strength Berlin team probably coming back and beating that Darby team. So I don't know. JT McGuire, who's the outside hitter for Thomas, could be back. I've heard speculation on that. So I don't know. We'll see. But obviously another huge match for Darby and OCC Cardinal in general.
Absolutely. And again, the OCC Cardinals very interesting because it seems like when you look at how these teams play, they get results where you don't expect them, right? You
Mhm.
know, where Derby beats Berlin on the road. That happened this year. That happened last year. Derby's able to get against Jerome on the road, but they lose to Jerome at home, end up losing to Jerome in the Region 3 finals. So again, that's a very interesting conference that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. And it's just interesting to see the dynamic that's playing through.
So we'll look at our Division I rankings here. Top four staying the same. Derby with the big win over Berlin. Again, like I'm really impressed with how they're playing without Chris Jones. I don't know when exactly he will be back. I don't know the nature of his injury, but the fact that they've been able to come together and continue getting wins, I think warrants them a spot over not only Berlin and Pick North, who they lost to in a scrimmage earlier on. I think it warrants them a spot over Brecksville too. I mean, the things we've seen from them, I don't think it's been as impressive as what we've seen from Derby.
I agree on that. I think Brecksville just hasn't gotten those flashy results. Like you take, for example, that St. Ed's result that happened in the first week where they had to come back. They really had to put the foot down on the pedal to really get those set wins, even though it was a sweep. Meanwhile, you have a Derby team that's doing well in Central Ohio, and I think has really found their identity most recently. And again, once you get Chris Jones back, this team could really cause some trouble. I think it's kind of interesting also to see that it was kind of the same last year, right? Derby was kind of wallowing away at some times, and then they make a run towards the start of April, and then towards the end of April, they're possibly in conversation of being a state contender. So again, I don't know if that's what we're going to see from Derby, but it's interesting to see.
Yeah, and then the only other difference you've got Elder at 8, Pick North at 9. I've got the opposite. The only thing I'll say there, I don't know. I just think the resume at Pick North, like I don't know, it's gonna be tough for me to put them down before I see them against some good competition. I could see the Elder going up higher, but I don't know. Just the fact that there are no sets dropped so far, I think warrants the 8th spot.
I can see where you're coming from. I think Elder's just competition in general. Don't get me wrong. I moved Pick North from 10 to 9 just from the results today against New Albany. Again, New Albany, decent team. They got the number 5 seed last year. So this is a team that could cause some damage, kind of like a Lakota East team in that way. The Thunderhawks were also a 5 seed in last year's playoffs. So again, Pick North starting to get a little bit more movement, but again, I feel like in terms of competition, it's still not there yet.
Then Division Two side, we both did not change our rankings at all. It's funny how the Division Two side works. I mean, I remember it being the same way last year where we really did not edit it a whole lot. Not a lot of upsets in D2 historically. Yeah, I mean, literally the exact same thing. One big result, I think we saw Baden take down Carroll pretty easily. So probably not going to see Carroll near or at the bottom, maybe of the top 10 the rest of the year. But
Yeah, I agree. Again, Baden took full responsibility of that. I think the other big thing is, there was not many games going on in Division Two, so that's why there were not too many changes. Again, Baden Carroll was supposed to be played on Tuesday, moved to Thursday night because of the severe weather, and that caused McNick Carroll to be postponed. So that was another interesting dilemma that ended up happening with a lot of the severe weather in Ohio. But again, pretty simple week in Division Two.
we were supposed to get some severe weather down here too, and a bunch of stuff got canceled, and it was like sprinkled for like 20 minutes. So what can you do? Better safe than sorry, I guess. Anyway, great week of volleyball, great week of sports in general. Alabama in the Final Four in March Madness, NC State in the Final Four. Crazy stuff. You're going, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. With that, this has been a hot volley talk. Here, any final thoughts?
Not much. Again, this is going to be an interesting week. There's going to be a lot of things going on, especially after a quiet week last week. So, again, a lot of sports going on. Roll Tide for this weekend. I'll be rooting for
Yes,
Alabama at
sir.
the Final Four. So, that should be fun. And again, go out, watch a lot of the stuff, watch our stuff on here, and we'll provide updates throughout the week.
Absolutely. And with that, this has been a hot volley talk. We will catch you next week.